and gentlemen. I will take you through about 16 slides, and hopefully they'll add value to you. At the end, I will expect you to ask questions. Now, you will see that in my presentations, I'm focusing more on very generic things that I believe the universities need to look at, and the governance bodies like ASAUDIT need to also consider, so that we create a little bit of efficiency and effectiveness in order to support the academic project. Now, if one looks at the role of the ASAUDIT, I think we have got power. If you were to take all the universities put together, I think they've got enough power to actually assist to create an atmosphere in which the role of IT in universities is actually solidified and consolidated by this group because of the power that we have. And most of the things that we recognize, and based on the discussions that I've experienced within this time that we've been together, we've got quite similar problems. It's problems that we would resolve if we were functioning as a united body. And I think ASAUDIT as an organization has a responsibility of assisting the universities in a commonality of looking at what needs to be done together for the betterment of the academic program. And I think one thing that I want to emphasize is, as we sit here, I do not think we are academics as such. We are the support structures that make the academics do what they need to do. So we are not in a competing mode. We are supposed to be cooperating. The academics can compete in terms of their ratings and the likes, but for us, it's more of giving the solid support and the necessary platforms for the academic project to succeed. I do not see why we cannot share skills. We've got issues around licenses. I'm an advocate of not being captured by organizations like Microsoft, who at any point can dictate how they want to do things without necessarily consulting with us. So I believe we need to be strong enough, unite, and address these issues. And we've got different universities that have specific skills that we require. I believe there's an opportunity for us to actually share these skills and make our support structures function cohesively, giving one another support and educating one another on specific areas that are not known by one party. And I believe we can do that. There's nothing wrong. We're not competing. We should actually be cooperating better for that, for the good of the universities. We purchase hardware from different vendors. We don't do this as one. We're operating in silos. Yes, we're different entities. But in terms of negotiating, I think we have an opportunity of functioning together and make sure that we use economic of scales and the power that we have as universities and address these challenges. And if it requires us to take this up, even up to government level, we can. There's nothing that stops us from doing that. Now, we've got vendors. You'll see, I talk about, being captured is it's a common term now in South Africa. You understand what it is all about. So, and the picture that you see there, reflecting certain vendors, there's nothing wrong with those vendors, but all we're trying to highlight there is these are well-established vendors. They have a lot of money, they've got big clout, and what they normally would do is, because Africa is a small place, they don't really make a lot of money here. So you find they'll go and sit somewhere in the States, make decisions, and come here and tell us that, oh, sorry, we've changed. This is now how things are going to happen. And in that, we are expected to support them. And at the same time, these changes are not amicable for what we want to achieve. Universities are not cash cows. We don't have a lot of money, maybe like the private sector. So as a result, these are the kind of things that we must fight together. And we've got a government that can assist us to deal with these things. And what I've personally experienced is that the vendors seem to have captured either certain users within universities to an extent that the directors or CIOs seem to be helpless in actually running what they need to run, which is an IT functioning for the good of the academic project. And these are the kind of things that I believe we need to tackle as a group, as a united team, and deal with them decisively. And one of the things I've also noticed is that universities seem to be stuck with certain vendors. Actually, that is actually not good for transformation of the country in terms of procurement. We need to give other new players space. It does not help for us to work with one vendor forever as if there are no other players around to compete with them. And when there's competition, you actually get a better service. And I think it's time we change our attitudes towards that. And I think in the same way, the CIOs and the directors, you also have responsibilities, those who are here, to actually assist in taking out those vendors that are a problem. Because it doesn't help to be massaging a vendor that is actually giving you problems. And I believe we should unite to identify them and get them blacklisted if we can. Because we pay these guys for the services that we get, and there's no reason why we should be massaging them when they're not assisting us in getting what we want to achieve. Now, there's an issue of collaboration. I think it is obvious that other than the fees must fall arena that happened about 2 years ago, there is need for these companies to actually participate in helping us. I think all of us here agree that the government or the country as a whole, literally, and all the universities have a challenge when it's time for registering for new students for next year. Now, if you look at the main challenges, we have got people all over the country who want to register to any university in the country. The question is, why do these guys, where are they? Why do these guys not assist the government by allowing for free any access to anything that says .ac.za? I really believe if these companies are companies that have got interest about developing the country, about interest about dealing with the education system and improving the education system, and also tackling the issue of unemployment inequality, I believe these 4 companies that I've identified, they need to assist us. And I think as an organization, as audit and all the directors, we need to sit down and approach them and say, guys, we need your support. For 2019, can you create a URL that goes to any university that requires, so that anyone who wants to access application to any university in South Africa, they can do that for free. So a guy who is sitting in the rural area with because they've got smartphones as well, but the only challenge they have is data. So let these guys give us free access. And again, in the same concept, we can have companies that can sponsor us with containers. We place them in strategic, safe places all over the country and allow people to go to these centers and go and register without necessarily having to travel to Joburg or Cape Town, which is quite a pain for some poor people that have to face these kind of challenges because of financial constraints. So I believe we can work and have conversations with these people and see and the authorities in these organizations and see how they could add value by participating and collaboration and become partners with universities, so that at the end everyone can give an equal opportunity despite their financial background. Right, we are universities that are very conservative. We've got guys that have got high reputation in terms of their responsibilities, the academics, the professors. They've got high ratings. They've been doing things for all these years and successfully so. Now comes digitalization, something that is literally going to disrupt the way things have been happening. So these are the kind of things that one is now looking at this era now and saying, what is in place now? As you can see, most people call it the fourth revolution. And if you look at where we are now, that environment where we are, it is very clear that we are now dealing with a new way of doing things in the technology space. Now, that disruption is not only affecting technology, it's affecting everything, including teaching and learning, which is literally what most of us here support. And the question is, how do we then deal with the gap between us trying to achieve making sure that our universities are digitalized, we are in sync with the digital state, versus dealing with conservatism that is in the university, dealing with renowned professors that still want to do things the way they have done them and has been proved to be working then. How do we deal with that? And the question that, to me, that comes is, we need to actually exercise quite a lot of change management. And I'm sure you are very familiar with this sign here. Everyone in Africa knows when people raise their fists, it's like there's some revolution taking place. Even when there was fees must fall. I'm sure you always saw this. Now, what is important about that is, as much as when you see this, it's more of the resistance for a certain revolution that is coming along. What is important for me is to consider how we deal with the change management in this space here and the mindset, because we are not going to go into a fight with the professors. We literally need to go into bed with them, at the same time making them understand why we need to change and why they need to change and teach in certain ways that are in sync with the digital state that we're going into. Oh, right, I think I'll give you time to go through this and I'll continue.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future isn't technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
Okay. Now, I think this is quite common to most of you in terms of disruptions. I think you can just look through this, look at the Uber, the Facebook, what they've done to our lives. And I mean, when I look at you right now, I see either people are busy on their laptops or busy with their phones. It shows that gone are the days where when you're talking to people, you expect them just to be looking at you and paying attention. Now there's double attention and triple attention, and those are the things that we have to face during this disruption phase. Can you hear me? Well, can you hear me? Is it working? Okay, cool. Right, now this is one of the most important things. If you look at the universities main stakeholders are students. I'm not discarding the fact that the professors and the support structures are also stakeholders, but the main stakeholders are students. The question is, let's look at the kind of students that are coming into the space now. And I'm sure we agree they are in this generation here, the majority of them. This does not mean 60-year-olds should not go to varsity. I'm just highlighting that the majority are in this space here. I'm sure you all agree with that. Now, if you consider then the kind of people that we were talking about, it's guys that prefer to use these gadgets here. Now, can you imagine what it means if you ask me to go and give a lecture to students and I'm writing on some green board somewhere? What it means to a person who is used to this type of life. Can you imagine what it means to a student who uses an iPad, and when they come into the university lab, they find this big desktop that they're expected to use? Can you imagine the transformation or the transition that they have to deal with? So this is important because what we need to do now as universities is to recognize that this is the space in which we are now operating. And these are the kind of edges that we're dealing with. And we need to accommodate that. So we need to transform and be in sync with the digital state in terms of the human beings and preparing for the kind of human beings and the setup that makes them function optimally. Well, that doesn't happen it's not a big bang approach. Obviously, transition is allowed to take place. Hence, there were groups that were discussing blended learning. So one recognizes that you still need to accommodate this in a way because you're not going to destroy your buildings overnight just because you want to accommodate the new setup. But at the same time, you must also be thinking of the kind of future. You can see the guys are sitting together, but all of them are busy doing something else on their phones. They may probably be having a conversation, but a double conversation kind of. One side, they're talking among themselves. On the other, they're also busy doing something else. And I think you guys also do it. I saw some of you yesterday sitting together during lunch, talking at the same time, WhatsApping your friends and having conversations. So this is the world in which we are now. So we have to accommodate that. But so this is meant to show you that this thing is not going to happen in a big bang. You give a transition period so that the blending part becomes the transition period to allow the change to take place harmoniously. Now, at a glance, this is literally what you want, the kind of state that you want, where instead of me sitting here with all of you looking at me and me appearing as if I'm the guy who knows everything, you all go and sit wherever you sit. I sit in my house or at some room somewhere and present the same thing without you having to come here. You could have seen the same presentation from your hotels if we were in a digital state. But you all had to come here to come and listen to me, which you could have done from your hotel. And that is where we are going in terms of the teaching as well. And there's no reason why students should be crowded in buses, get involved in accidents, get mugged just because they want to go and attend a lecture. The lecture can still be attended while sitting at home. All you need is access, a gadget, and access to the lecture. Ideally, this is what we want universities to be like. A place where you can have access anytime, you can have access sitting anywhere, and you can have access with any device. Because eventually, if you give this opportunity to those young people that come into our universities now, there's no reason for them to come and sit in a lecture of 40 or 60 people. They can do that sitting at home. And if you think, again, in terms of, I'm now putting myself in an academic space. So I'm a prof. The only people that know that there's some Dr. Mpofu who teaches X, Y, Z are the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. But if this was in place, what it means is you can actually teach to more than 100,000 people at a time, internationally. Because if people have got access, right now, I think if this is video streamed to 100,000 people, 100,000 people can actually now see, oh, there's a prof at UCT or at VETS or at UJ or at Limpopo who teaches this subject very well. So students don't have to stick to one prof. They can listen to the same subject from a prof from any other university. That's the kind of life these young people prefer. So what are the benefits of digitalization? Currently, if I'm not wrong, most universities struggle with accommodation for students. If I'm not wrong, most universities struggle with the crime around the residents and the university itself. So what it means is universities must put aside quite a lot of money to deter crime, quite a lot of money to consider creating accommodation for the students. But can you imagine what it would mean if those students had access from home? They didn't need to come to university, so you didn't need to create residence for those that come from faraway places. Well, all you need to create is, in those faraway places, create that access. And then the students don't need to come to a university. Can you also imagine what will happen in the next 10 years? There are online universities. All universities are now introducing online lessons and material. So what will eventually happen is, well, a person can sit in Northern Cape and decide that they want to enroll at MIT or Harvard. There's no reason why they should be compelled to study at VETS or UCT. So eventually, this competition will go international. So you're not going to be having students that want to have a degree from UCT. If MIT can provide an MBA, why not do it online if it doesn't require you to go and find accommodation in the US somewhere? So these are the kind of things that we should be considering. So on issues of security, you'll save a lot of, the universities will save a lot of money. In issues of buildings, they will save a lot of money. By the way, most of these buildings are actually, they are structured like Italian jails sometimes, because they are not really conducive for the young person who wants to learn in an appropriate environment currently. So it will actually help most of the universities in cost savings. And travel costs will not be there because there is no reason why one has to travel. So to me, what is important is access and availability of material from anywhere using any gadget. That is what is critical. And we need to consider that and stop worrying about creating more buildings. And by the way, whilst this is happening, it also deals with the issue of constraints that are given by universities. Because you listen around February, universities will, sometimes it appears like they're bragging. No, we can only take 6,000 students, new first years. Of course, it's because they are operating in an old model. They're still thinking of the old days of people sitting in one room. They are not thinking of saying, well, we'll accommodate 50,000 students. As long as they don't need to come into campus, they will get access. And that is possible, isn't it? It is feasible that a university can take 100,000 students. It's not about buildings, it's more about access. We now have the technology to deal with that. So if you look at these things, it's the use of technology to deal with constraints. So every time there is a challenge at your university, when they start talking, please ask them to hold first and then ask them a question. Have you guys considered how technology can help you to address the challenge that you have? I think that must always be the question. Because every time when they start discussing, I also sit in these meetings. When the discussions start, it's not about technology. How can technology help resolve a challenge? They speak about the challenge, and then they go into their old ways of resolving issues. So our building is too small, let's expand it. Or our building looks old, let's renovate it. They don't look at this and say, well, our building is old. Let's not worry about the building. Let's introduce technology. People can still access this lecture from a better building in the campus. So we need to change our operating model. We need to change the way we think and use the question, how can technology resolve the challenge? That must be the first question. Because we are now in a technological era where all problems can be resolved using technology. Right, you'll notice that whenever there's a change or whenever something is now in place, like the digitalization, there are people or organizations that choose not to do anything about it. The unfortunate thing about that is when you don't do anything about it, you're literally going to be obsolete in a few years. And our universities, if they also don't change, soon I'm sure some new universities will come on board in South Africa and internationally, and they will take most of our students and our ratings will change. UCT is currently #1, VETS is #2. Those things are going to change, trust me. So it's important for us to start also thinking differently. We used to have specific models of running universities. That was the era where technology wasn't the driver of things. Now technology is the driver of things in the digital state. Our models must also change to subscribe to the needs of the digital state. You can't use the old model to deal with the new kind of challenge. We need to actually sit and create new models of how to run universities. So what must change? I think the universities must also consider great changes, particularly in terms of who supports them, how do they do things. The CIOs and the directors must also think about the resources that we have. They've been trained to do things in a certain way. I think we need to start reskilling people for our digital state. Currently, I think the majority of us have the resources that were skilled in the 80s and 90s, which is no longer relevant for what we need to do now. So we must have the courage to change the skills of our people. And those that cannot be changed can be allowed to retire early. We also have policies in the university that are quite strange because sometimes they were relevant then, but very strange for what we want to do now. Because if you have a policy that says 80%, I'm just speculating here, so this is not fact, But there's a policy that says, say, 80% of attendance must happen in a specific lecture. But then this is literally going against the principles of what we are trying to achieve in a digital state. Because in a digital state, people don't have to come into your class. So we must go back to the policies and look at them and change them to suit the current environment. Well, in terms of the culture and the mindset, I believe that is the biggest stumbling block. Because anything can happen, any change can happen, but you actually need the people to change their mindset. And I think we must start slowly, particularly us sitting here, because we're all IT, we're into IT space, and we're very much used to changes. We've been having changes ever since technology started. So we're used to that. But it's our other colleagues that we need to take on board and help them embrace the change so that at least we can get into a digital state correctly. And this means everybody right up to the top of the university, because you need the support from the people at the top to understand the changes that you need to implement into a for our digital state. Okay, I'm one person who is also very passionate about this, hence I'm talking about it and trying to see if universities can buy into this concept. I think it is a common trend that we have quite a lot of people that are unemployed, the young people that are unemployed. And I think those who listen to the president, last week sometime he was talking about giving people an opportunity, experience. Because most times people always talk about experience. Well, unfortunately, experience is not something you buy in a shop. You need someone to give you space to get that experience or to gain it. So I think we must have the courage to do that. And personally, I'm being a CIO at VETS, since I arrived last year in May at VETS, I think I can proudly say I've taken more than 50 interns working with good collaboration with companies like Talk IT and Bytes. And all we do is to create that environment where they come and practice, they work with us in ICT, and after that they can get employed elsewhere. But at least we give them experience. And among the interns are those with disabilities. We took 11 this year. In January we took, sometime early this year, maybe in January, I can't remember the month. But we took 11 interns that are people with disabilities, and we're working with them, including my own PA. I had to move my own PA so that I walk the talk. And we need to do that so that we expose these people for their own development, for their own opportunities in future. They can run their own thing. They can also be part of us. Any one of us can still employ them. But let's give these young people opportunities. You also want to have young managers. When you sit as a CIO or director, you don't want to sit. I'm 70 years old, so I don't want to sit with all 70-year-olds around me. You also want young managers, so let's give them the opportunity. Let's develop young people, give them opportunities into managerial activities and support them. Because it doesn't help also to be having the same old faces year after year. Please, let's develop young people. Allow young managers to come on board, allow young people to develop. That's how they gain the experience. There's no one who was born a manager. We all went through processes of being given opportunities and developed and supported. So I've spoken about reskilling. I think one of the things is we also need to look at developing or assisting, particularly these established companies that the universities work with. Let's create an environment where these universities, these companies, also are seen to develop other new players into the market and not be the stumbling blocks and hold us to ransom because they are the only ones who can help us. It doesn't help. It's literally against the principles of government of transforming, and we need all of that transformation to take place, and it is us here who must also help to transform both the procurement space and the people that we need to develop. Okay, I think that is my last slide. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the floor? Well, I've got a question, if you don't mind, about your interns. Are they WITS students, or are they any?
They are not WITS students. So what we did was we had discussed, okay, they are not WITS students to answer your question, but they are interns that belong to Talk IT, that belong to Bytes. All the two companies wanted an area where these interns can go and have practical experience. So we went through the process internally to create that environment in a legal and right way. So they currently work in our space, but we don't pay them, by the way. They're paid by the two companies. All we provide is resources for them to work, and then we've got assessments that are done. I can't remember whether it's a month or every 2 months, I can't remember, but yeah, that's what we do.
Okay, thank you. And how are they selected? I mean, there's so many people looking for internships.
My senior managers interview them. They're given, let's say, 20 interns. They interview them, then they decide which different areas they must go and work within ICT. So it's done by my senior managers.
All right, thank you. And just one last question from me. So are there opportunities for other universities to get involved with this internship program?
Sure, if they're interested, we can assist them to do it. Yeah. You guys, I think it's important that you either ask questions or start all over again. There's a question now.
Who's got the mic?
What kind of development opportunities do you offer these people once they're in the role? So your interns arrived, what development do you offer them then?
It depends on the area. If an intern arrives and they belong to, a decision is taken by the senior managers that they will work with the security department, or security meaning, I'm talking about IT security, or project management. It depends on which area they go into. Then they get the support within that area. Have I answered your question?
Do you keep them on after that?
No. The arrangement is they are there for 12 months. Or, yeah, I think it's 12 months. So after 12 months, they leave and we get a new set. But if for some reason there's an opportunity, let's say there are 3 opportunities for us to contract, say, for 6 months, then after that, the managers will then give an opportunity to all of them, interview, let's say 1-3. We get those 3, and then they are contracted for 6 months. Yeah. But there's no obligation for us to employ them when they finish. Yeah. By the way, some leave and get jobs in the private sector whilst they are with us. So it's acceptable. Yeah. So someone with a question this side.
Over this side, please.
Thank you. My question is on the digital literacy. Transforming the landscape to a digital education environment, how do we ensure that everyone has access to this? Because we understand that some students are exposed to technology only when they reach university. In their school years, basically, they don't have access to these technological devices. How do we ensure that when they reach university, or when they get access to these now open online resources, they are able to interact with them efficiently?
Do you want to answer?
No, I also want to pose a question.
Oh, okay. Right. If I got your question correctly, you are saying how do we assist those that get to become that get to university but they're not computer literate? Am I correct? Is that your question? Am I correct? Okay. Well, I think, to be frank, where I come from, I don't think we have a program to assist them. But I know there are labs that are there. But then the question is, how do we assure that when they get into those labs, they know what to do? Possibly we are literally, currently I think we are not helping them. Unless there is a university that has a program to deal with with that literacy level to close that gap before the students come in. I don't know. But I'm not sure. Maybe one of my colleagues can help. At VETS, do we have something like that, Sharon, where if the students come in and they are seen not to be capacitated in terms of utilizing technology, do we assist them at all at VETS?
Hi. As part of the first year experience is a literacy course, as well as our learning and development team does a basic Windows or Microsoft course where they get sort of familiarized with Office, Word, Excel. And that's basically how we deal with that at the moment.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you answered. Did you know? Okay. Thank you. There was another question from...
My issue goes around, you were saying about transformation specifically. You were saying under people's development, transform the support environment to reflect the demographics of the country. At the moment, we're all well aware that there's a lot of resistance in terms of transformation. What type of mechanisms will you put in place to ensure that there will actually be skills development and it doesn't become just an ordinary type of word that is hanging in the air, but it's not conceptualized, but it's being practically implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. These things must start with commitment from leadership. So as a CIO at VETS, for example, I gave an instruction. When I got in, I discovered that the area needed transform. The ICT itself needed to transform. So I gave simple instructions to my senior managers that anyone who you are going to hire must be a black woman or a young person. So that was a simple instruction, and you monitor that. And when it comes to transfer of skills, I have a template that we have developed at VETS in ICT. So first, you can't go big bang. You have to start where you are and transform that area where you are. And I think as you do that, your neighbors will start asking, how are you doing things? How are you transforming? How come your environment is changing? And then you explain to them what you have done. So I have a skills transfer template, for example. So if I'm going to bring a consultant for 6 months, they are going to work with one of my resources. And on a monthly or weekly, whatever it is, they are sign-offs. So the skills are recorded. What are the skills that are going to be transferred? When are they expected to be complete? When is a specific skill expected to be understood by the person who is learning? And at that point, both of them sign. My resource, the ICT person signs, and the consultant signs. So there, then the transfer of skills doesn't become any issue. So transformation is feasible. You just need to be committed. You just need to make sure you monitor it, because if you talk about it and you don't monitor it, it's not going to happen. As you say, resistance will always be there, yes, we understand. But we have a responsibility of making sure we put rules that are not, that you can monitor and to make sure that everything happens according to what you have agreed.
I know we're running out of time, but the young lady up there has had her hand up for the longest, so just one last question, please.
Okay, I'll be quick. Good morning, Doctor. I just wanted to find out, how do you handle, if there are any, the tensions between the academic space and the ICT space? Because I do tend to find in our university there is that sense of we know better, so you can't tell us what you can't say no to us, basically. So how do you handle that?
Sadly, so. I was once told, I'm also an ex-student of VET. So sometime this year, a prof told me in my face that he knew IT better than me. And I also heard someone here pass a comment, I think it was on Monday, where they were referring to the relationship between us, the ICT support and academics is sleeping with the enemy. The important thing is this. You need to nurture the relationship, and my strategy has been simple. I started with the deans when I arrived at VETS. I established my relationship with the deans I proved to them that I wasn't there by mistake. I knew my story. And once I created that confidence to the deans, when I went to the faculty, what are they called? Faculty executive committees, my case was closed. Yeah, so start with the dean. Go and show to the, you need to show that you know what you're doing, you stabilize what you have, and then go and have a conversation with the deans. Have the deans on your side. Once the deans are on your side, then go also and attend the management committees, you know, those committees that are headed by the deans, because that is where you find all these professors who have got all these weird ideas, and you need them to be on your side also. Once those are on your side, you are done. Case closed.
Thank you very much.